What is going on, guys? Ricky in the Flip Lab. Today I'm here with Eric Sage. I've known Eric for a few years. We used to go on a lot of hikes together. We've talked about creative finance, and he's one of the guys that I really looked up to in that space. So happy to have you on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me here in the Flip Lab. This is cool. And we talk about golf too, because we have golf in common as well.
Yeah, we do. Eric is a very good golfer. We haven't gotten out there yet, but
yeah,
we got to make it happen. I think I'm playing at like a 3 handicap right now.
Okay, that's really good.
So
that's good.
I think you'd be pretty competitive out there.
All right. Well, we're gonna play soon for sure.
Yeah, let's get out there.
We'll just put it in the calendar and lock it in.
So, you've been in real estate a long time. How long have you been doing real estate investing for?
Yeah, so I started real estate in 2004. Was my first like real estate investment journey. I bought my first rental property in 2020 or 2003, and I bought it just like you are taught back in 2003. I'm old. So go find a real estate agent, and then his friend is a real estate agent, and they'll sell you a rental property for market value. You put 10 or 15, 20% down, and you make a few bucks in cash flow. And then in 30 years, you'll have it free and clear, and you'll make your $1,500 a month or whatever, right? That's the standard world. I didn't know any better back then. And so fast forward to 2004, I had a corporate job. In fact, my first job out of college, after I did a little golfing stint, I was an elevator salesman, and then I went from elevator sales to diaper sales. I was selling diapers to long-term care facilities.
That's an interesting niche.
Yep. And so basically I was a distributor. We sold ointments and gauze pads, and diapers was one of the bigger sales that we did. And right when I started that job, I started messing around with pre-foreclosures. And so one of my good buddies that I golfed with told me where to go find a list on the internet, which was back in 2004. You don't have everything at the palm of your hand. I literally would go online and I'd print out a list, and I would go after work, which work for me was over at about 3 o'clock. And so at 3 o'clock, I would look at a list, and if it was in my area, I might go door knock. What I typically did is I would go from 10 to 2 on Saturdays, because typically people who are in default are home during 10 and 2. And so I didn't waste my time, going around. But so anyway, what happened for me was I random foreclosure list. I pulled up in my neighborhood in Chandler, not far from this office, and I door knocked on a Friday afternoon. It was a 3-day weekend. And I'm in my company Taurus that they give you in medical sales, right? I pull up to the property. Is a beautiful home, and I door knocked, and one of the largest. So picture like a lineman for the Arizona Cardinals. That's who answered the door. So he's a monster, right? And I'm like, hey man, I think your house is going to foreclosure. Keep in mind, I didn't know what foreclosure was. I didn't even know what I was doing.
Just taking action out there.
I was just like, looks like this is something I can solve. No risk. I had a job, man. I had nothing to worry, nothing to fear or whatever. And that's just my personality anyway. So I door knocked him. He's like, yeah, man, we got it taken care of. And it looked like he'd just woken up, and he slammed the door. And I was like, okay. So I go back to my Taurus, rip off a piece of paper, put my name and phone number, went back and door knocked it again. He goes, what's up? I go, hey man, if anything changes or something happens, okay. So sure enough, he phone rings, and a couple hours later, and it hits his wife, and she goes, yeah, we have a problem. We're losing our house on Tuesday because it was a 3-day weekend, and we were in foreclosure. My husband he actually was an NFL football player, and he'd made some investments, and they were behind on their mortgage, and so to stop the foreclosure, they filed BK. BK was discharged, meaning they don't when it's discharged, they don't have there's no time. It's boom, auction date. So they knew that was happening. They're $58,000 behind on their mortgage. So how in the world am I, Eric, going to come up with $58,000 and behind on their mortgage when I don't even know what a damn foreclosure is, for that matter?
Yeah.
So anyway, what happened was, a godly thing, however you want to call it, I'd golfed with one of my really close friends 3 weeks prior, who used to be a cameraman for, I think, ABC or NBC or whatever. and he's now a real estate investor, and he drives nice cars and has cool places, but no one really knows what he does. Well, he door knocks pre-foreclosures. It helps people out of their problems, right? Helps them with their. Sure enough, I call him up. Well, first what I did is I called my realtor that sold me my first real estate investment property, and he's like, Eric, I can't help you. I don't even know what that. Okay, so sure enough, I call up my buddy Marty, and Marty and I talk, and he goes, I go, yeah, I've got this property. This is what's going on. He goes, how the hell did you get a meeting? Oh, by the way, I scheduled a meeting for Saturday at 1:00. And I didn't even know
with the NFL guy.
Yes.
Okay.
To help them save their house, which I didn't know how to save their house or who was going to help me. I thought my realtor was. I didn't know anything. Sure enough, Marty's like, hey man, like, how the heck did you get a meeting? I've been door knocking this house for a year straight, because he lived in the neighborhood too. And so, long story short, we went over, signed a contract. We got the reinstatement numbers. Sunday night or Monday morning of the 3-day holiday, his wife goes into labor with his first or second child. And we're trying to stop a foreclosure, keep these people from losing their house. Okay. Sure enough, we knock it out. We get it going. I met him at, I don't know where I met him, but it was near the courthouse. Hopped in his car, pulled up to the courthouse steps. He goes, take this $58,000 check, walk up the stairs. And there's a trustee there. Just tell them what you're doing and give them this number and tell them I have the check to stop the sale and it'll be over. And they'll give you a receipt and then come back down to the car and we'll drive away. I'm like, really? That's what happens? He goes, yeah, that's how it works. And he wanted to be under the radar. He didn't want anyone knowing who he was. And sure enough, I walk up to this house. Keep in mind, there was $250,000 worth of equity in this property. It was going to auction and someone was going to buy it and they were going to be moving down. So sure enough, I walk up, stop the sale. Everyone's like, what the hell's going on here? How are you? Who are you? And I just walked back and hopped in his Honda Accord and drove away, And so clearly, that was my first real experience of a wholesale deal, because he basically paid me a fee for this deal.
Just like a finder's fee.
Yeah. So he gave me $4,500 and a piece of the deal. That was the deal. And so I was like, well, this is fantastic. My first deal, I make $4,500. Fast forward a year later, I worked for him. I brought him a ton of deals, made more than getting finder's fees from him and percentage of deals, more than my real job, which I was making pretty good money. And so that was it. I quit my job and went into it full time. At the time, my wife and I ended up getting married, and she came in as was listening to some stuff on visionaries and integrators, and she says she's not a visionary or integrator, but she really is. But she's also a visionary too. She's actually the whole thing.
She has it all.
She has it all. Yeah. So anyway, so that was my first experience of my very first deal. So now fast forward. Now keep in mind what we did is we reinstated the loan, kept the seller in the property. We worked out a deal where if they made a certain amount of payments so back then, if you had a heartbeat and 6 months worth of payments, you were able to refinance. Like Dodd-Frank and all that stuff about now didn't exist. Like they didn't have to have the ability to pay. They didn't know anything other than a good credit score, and they would refinance. So anyway, so that's what we did. So I just started going around reinstating mortgages, keeping people in their homes, and then they would buy them back from us in 12 months to 2 years, which is what we did. And our business plan was whatever our cost was, we would double it, and we would get their debt to income where it was affordable for them, and then we would get paid. And so a lot of people ask, well, gosh, 58,000 here, 30,000 here, like you'll run out of 58,000 pretty quick. Like where did all the damn money come from, right? And that's how I learned how to raise private capital. So that's been my deal. So anyway, fast forward 2004 to 2023, we are in now, is I've done everything. I've done lease options, fix and flips, wholesaling, land development, land splits, lot splits, building, everything you can think of, rentals, and actually have fixed myself back into note creation, which is being the bank. Because after all this said and done, if you look back, you have private lenders. What do your private lenders do? They give you money and they collect it. They collect it. There's no stress.
They just want you to keep using it too. Like they don't want, like I tried to send the full wire back to them, and then they're like, you have something else we can put this in, or So what I did about 5 years ago, I kept thinking, well, gosh, my private lender, he what are his debits and credits, right? He gets a debit when he lends me money,
and then he gets all the credits when I'm paying him, and then there's nothing to do, like nothing. Like if you put your time value of money on being a lender, other than the risk of default,
you got to find a good operator. I would say that's like the hardest part. But if you find a good operator, I mean, realistically, you're not doing anything.
Yeah, nothing. It's great. You built so obviously my ultimate hard money or private lenders are I call them enders. They've made all their money. They've sold their companies. They've made their 10, 15, 20 million or a million, whatever. In fact, I even like the smaller investors that have maybe $1 million left before that's their retirement, and they'll outlive it. And so I feel like I have an obligation to get them in my world so I can give them income and give them security. All our stuff's tied to real estate. It's all secured to real estate.
It's crazy you mentioned that number because my dad just retired and my parents finally sold their house we grew up in New Jersey. They're probably moving out here, but he retired with like around $1 million, like no debt. But looking at him and my mom, hopefully, if they live long lives, like that's not going to be enough for them for the next 30 years. So,
but they have Social Security, right?
They do.
And some retirement.
So yeah, he's got a 401k,
yeah.
But he's one of my biggest private money lenders. Sure. And it's almost like I feel obligated to put his money to work at a higher rate because he almost went with just getting like an annuity and going down to like zero. And I'm like, that's not the way to do it. But at the same time, like if we don't have a project going on and his money's just sitting in the bank, he gets antsy.
Yeah.
I'm like, Dad, just be a little patient. Like we'll have another project coming up soon. But he just wants that money working. And it's hard for guys like that who worked corporate jobs their whole life to find good vehicles to really put it into and see monthly cash flow.
100%. And so that's kind of where I'm at today. Fast forward to 2023 is I'm a note creator. So I'm very blessed to know how to find discounted real estate. I'm blessed to understand more amortization and interest. I'm also blessed to know that there's the majority of the market, 70% of the market, people rent because they have to, not because they want to.
Sure.
So the majority of Americans rent not because they want to, because they have to, because it just doesn't fit the box for a traditional bank. And so now we know how to provide homeownership for that clientele. And there's not a better feeling business and purpose for being in real estate. I make a great living and I get to provide homeownership for deserving families. And so that's where I'm at today. So I went through that whole cycle, and people always ask me, they're like, well, if you're the bank, there's tax there. You're basically kind of an employee as and I'm like, yeah, but then I go buy real estate to offset my taxes. And so I have a plan, of what I do, with my estate and how I do it. But yeah, so that's my model now. And, I've got some really good strategies and, I teach it now cause I felt like I'm limited to me. And so, one of my ultimate goals, for 2023, is to help 1,000 homeowners create homeownership that didn't think they were able to do it. And it could be nationwide. It could be here in Phoenix. It could be wherever. And so, because my market basically is Phoenix, and the Arizona and Texas markets are my main markets because they're lender friendly and landlord friendly states. But it works anywhere. And so now I share my story with as many people as I can. That's why I'm here with you. And I mean, you and I kind of geek out on some of this stuff because you're like, well, yeah, I would do that differently.
Well, a big part of what intrigues me is obviously I'm in real estate full time, investors kind of flipped wholesale rentals, but I don't really love the idea of like owning a bunch of rentals personally. I have like 9 in New Jersey that my partner pretty much manages, so I don't really have to manage those per se. But thinking long term, like I don't want to be the landlord I was talking about and have to manage and deal with real estate. But I want assets, I want cash flow. So I feel like you've kind of found a pretty good position to be in where you're not really having to deal with a lot of the real estate, and you're still...
You want to be a lien lord.
Right. Is that what you call it? A lien lord?
Yeah, we're lien lords. We're lien lords, yeah.
Did you kind of find this niche after experience what like being a landlord was, and then realize that's just not what you really want?
Well, I was very blessed because the best part about foreclosure bailouts and leaving the seller in the home, which you never do now, you just wouldn't do it.
It doesn't make sense now.
Because their exit to get you paid is not it's almost not, I'm not gonna say it's not possible. It's very difficult. Before, because anyone with 6 months of payments, and their credit at 580, they're going to be able to refinance without even going through the qualification processes back then. Now you actually have to show the ability to pay,
or they won't. Yeah, they won't
can't get a loan.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, even when we sell our house, we go and dig in to get verifiable income for our borrowers. Like, we underwrite a borrower just like Wells Fargo or Chase or Bank of America, just like they do. We just have different ways. We're not credit based, we're an asset based loan, but we need to have a proof that they have the ability to pay. So when you ask me, like, okay, what took you through that journey? Well, I loved finding great deals, and I loved not having to manage the property. So when I bought a house and kept the tenant the old owner in place, there was nothing to do, because it was a lease option. So they were responsible for all the repairs. It was their house. They felt like it was their house, and we did the right thing. Like, I had a lot of our borrowers pay us off and did the right thing, because majority of lease options don't work.
They don't end up buying the house.
No, never.
And then you keep that down payment, and then you get to do it again. And it's not a bad position to be in, but
yeah, I feel like that's a smoke and mirror model, and it works. And the time I do lease options, like we're doing one right now, I think in Kansas City, is we've found 3 or 4 borrowers with 28 to 30,000 down, and they couldn't pass the qualifications to get a loan. And so we're like, well, wait a minute, they're amazing borrowers. They couldn't verify their income, but we could help them verify their income within 12 months. We just need to tell them what to do, and they'll do it. And so that's why I would buy that. I already own it, convert it into a lease purchase, help them get verifiable income, and then convert it into a note. Like, that's the plan, But keep in mind, our model is we're able to buy wholesale, sell retail, charge 10% interest, which nowadays isn't even that high anymore, and keep it within line of what rent would be.
Yeah. And
then pass on all the expenses to the borrower, and you have a very, very predictable source of income. I was just looking at one the other day that my bank account only went 18 months, but I swear to you that it was $1,860 a month. Every month on like the second of the month it hit, and it just never. I was actually thinking about, well, what have I done for the last 18 months of that income? Nothing. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't even know the borrower, because I didn't find them. I just created the deal. And because I always ask everyone, I mean, do you have a mortgage?
Yeah.
When was the last time you called your bank?
Never.
Other than to ask them
pay
for more money.
or a refi.
And you don't ask them for that. You're typically your title or your broker or whoever you're going to refinance with. So it's a very, very predictable, scalable business. I mean, and I hovered around 80 to 90, 80 to 100 loans at any given time, right now. And there's not a lot. And I do have, when you talk about rentals, I just had a rental that I did sublet out to as a behavioral health operator. And she just called me yesterday. I was like, oh yeah, we moved out. I'm like, was your ever a time that you were going to tell me you were going to move out?
Yeah,
other than me noticing your money didn't pop in, because she was a great payer.
Yeah.
And so I was a little pissed, but you know what's funny is I've decided to change a lot of my mentality lately, and it's just like, okay, there's an opportunity here. Let's work. She was trying to like justify it. She's all pissed off at me and making it's my fault. And I'm like, yeah, it's not it's nobody's fault. It's okay. Like, now help me figure out more about what you do. Maybe I can help you in another manner, because she's actually figured it out. And so it was kind of cool. But so anyway, back to the whole model is my personality is I know how to find great deals. I'm really good at it. And then I figured out a system to find great borrowers that deserve home ownership. And then I have a system to put all the pieces together. And I don't like to rehab. I wish I did. I wish I was good at it. I wish I had a vision for that, but I'm not. I know how to find good deals and make the cash flow work. So that's kind of the model.
So I'm pretty good at finding good deals. I think the part I've struggled with implementing what you're doing is maybe finding those borrowers. Like, how are you building up a list of those people?
Yeah, good question. So we do a weekly call every Wednesday. I think is it 1 p.m. Eastern time? Yeah, and I'll give you guys my contact and stuff.
We'll throw
later
it
on here. But so it was really cool, because our business model is in cash now, so cash up, getting the cash. How do you get the cash up? And you don't put any money into the deal. So you bought a house. I'll give you a real good example of one of our clients. He bought a house in Houston for 125. He got 100% financing from his hard money lender or his private lender. So, cause they like the loan to value and everything. Then he went out and went on Facebook Marketplace, marketed it for $210,000. In fact, I think he's gonna get 230.
Did he fix it?
No rehab. No rehab. Okay. Not even a cleanup. And so then he'll get 10% down so he'll get 20 to 25,000 down. And so I just did the round math. I go, hey, it's 125, 200, which is still great. 20,000 down. The borrower will owe him $180,000 at 10.25% is kind of the going rate right now. And then what we talk about and what we do, and not a lot of people in the subject to world because sub 2 is great. I love sub 2, but what happens with sub 2 is you're on the hook for that loan, just like the BRRRR method, where you go, you buy it, you rent it, or you renovate it, you rehab it, rent it, refinance,
repeat. Yeah.
That's the BRRRR model. But at the end of the BRRRR model, you loan that you're responsible for if the tenant pays or not, right? So that's the downside of that. And so, and I'll give you an example of a new BRRRR model that we came up with recently, which is freaking awesome. But anyway, so what happens now is what we do is that the borrower now owes $180,000. 70% of that number of the 200, which is the values in the 130 some range, he'll be able to go. So what we do is we create a note for about in the 130 range, and then he'll have another $40,000 or $50,000 second lien. Okay. So what we'll do is we sell off the first lien to pay off the underlying hard money loan.
Yeah, that original hard money lender.
So now that's sold off to I'm a note buyer, probably to my company or somebody that I can help broker that sell off of that first lien. And now he's left with a $40,000 to $50,000 second lien. He has no cost in at 10.25%, which is about $400 to $500 a month. And from a fully underwritten borrower that put 20 some thousand down, that will most likely not default because they're this type of borrower. They'll move their family in and they'll love it. Not to mention he got $20,000 down too. So that comes out to the cash now model. So he'll probably net 10,000, which is what a wholesaler would probably net on that deal.
Yeah.
Plus a $50,000 second lien and the $500 a month, which is what we all want. So it's like, how many of those do I need to make 10,000 a month with no risk? Because now you have no risk because you've sold off your underlying debt at cost basis.
Right. Okay? You don't owe anyone any money.
No money. You owe no one anything. Yep. And now you have this stream of income coming in.
So he probably could have wholesaled it and probably made maybe like a 20 grand assignment or something like that.
Yep.
So instead of doing that, got 20 grand up front in a down payment, but now he's collecting that $500 a month for
and so keep in mind, I have loans right now that are 10 years old. They're the same. That's a type of borrower. Because here's what that type of borrower is unable to do. Go get another bank loan. You are their solution. So they last about 10 years. So I put 10 years in my pro forma. Okay. So he's making $500 a month for 120 months, which is 50 some $1,000, right?
Yeah.
Plus the 10 grand. Plus, if you know how to run an amortization calculator, go put $50,000 in an amortization calculator at 10% interest and see what they owe you in 10 years.
In 10 years, that's probably close to like 80, 100.
No, they would, so 50,000 if that's the second lien.
Right.
Like 48. 47.
Okay.
So you get all the cash flow. So talk about the real estate world. All you're banking on is appreciation. Well, all your appreciation is in the amortization. That's why banks are banks. That's the whole reason. So that's my epiphany in life is how many single family homes can I help people get homeownership, which everybody wants to be a homeowner. How can I make it affordable? How can I make it a win-win for all of us? And then I'll take all that money and I'll go buy commercial buildings or whatever.
Yeah. And I feel like me and Brandon were actually talking about this yesterday. I feel like that market of people that do really well, they make money, but they're not bankable in bank terms these days compared to maybe 20 years ago. Like not all these people are making money on the internet and these side hustles and making all this other non-bankable type of money. And I'm seeing more and more people around my age. I mean, Brandon included, like he's not bankable at this point, but he could totally afford to buy a good house and put down a hefty down payment.
Well, I'm a great example. So in 2008, market crashes, 2007. My goal in life from 04 until that period was to have $20 million worth of real estate and $10 million worth of debt. So that was good, right? So I had $10 million in equity,
50%.
I've got life's great, things are good. 2007, 2008 comes along, and my $20 million worth of real estate goes to $5 million in real estate, and I had $10 million worth of debt.
And that stays the same.
That's not a good plan. Yeah. Not to mention, back then was variable. So everything was going up and down. Now, keep in mind, if I would have had a crystal ball and know what I know now, I had the money I had the money to keep it. I had the money. I didn't have to file bankruptcy. But what I did is I liquidated it. I did some moving around. But now what happened to me? Not bankable. I'm not going down anywhere to get a loan, because every time I walked into Wells Fargo in 2005 and 2006, they're like, "Hey, Mr. Sage, how's it going? Do you need a $250,000 line of credit?" I'm like, "Yeah, what do I need to do?" "Nothing. Sign here and it'll be in your account tomorrow." I mean, it was that easy. It was unbelievable. Jeez. So then I was like, well, I'll pay off all my private people and I'll just use my own lines of credit. It was crazy. And that's how I operate. I mean, millions of dollars of lines of credit. I was running my businesses. I was buying flips. I was doing whatever, because that's what I did. And so that ended. And so now Eric is not bankable, and I had a beautiful home actually in Chandler, and I wanted to move to a different area of town, nicer area of town. And sure enough, found a great deal. Found a private investor, put $200,000 down. So I'm my own client now in this world. $200,000 down I put down. Didn't blink. Didn't even think about it. Had a private investor who's not a bank fund the deal, and I was able to, I didn't skip a beat, put it that way, because I know what I know now.
Yeah.
And so anybody that's not bankable right now, there's a million ways that you can structure deals and get into housing, get into, I always talk, you have safety and you have certainty and security of home ownership for you and your family. And so if you don't have that, how's that? It's not a great feeling. Like, if you're a tenant, like, it's not. And so that's the coolest part about our borrowers is, and they're from, it doesn't really, I mean, I looked at a $2.5 million house the other day, that I think would be a good deal. It's a little risky. It's a little above what I like. I mean, the 400 and under properties all over this nation is your bread and butter, and they're everywhere, and you can find buyers, and they have the down payment, and they have the ability to pay and all that stuff. So it's something that, it's super scalable. I mean, I have an assistant that works for me part-time that pretty much runs my entire,
so if
portfolio.
You come across a deal here in Phoenix and you're looking for like that M buyer, are you making Craigslist ads to find them? Are you? Yeah,
good question. So let's go back to my guy. So he finds it for 125. So how did he go find 9 buyers in like 2 days? Facebook Marketplace. He, in this particular area, put it in Spanish and in English. He had a flow of calls that come in that went to like probably his Google Voice. He's just he implemented all the stuff that I told him to do. Now he has 9 buyers, but guess what? He only has 1 house. So that 1 house is going to turn into 8 other opportunities that now he can go. He already knows their down payment.
He could go find their house.
So now he'll go to any wholesaler in Houston and say, I need this house in this area. They'll probably find it for him. And he can pay more than most people because he has a $20,000, $30,000 down payment buyer waiting for home ownership, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the cooler ones I love is a lot of people don't look at 2 1s and 3 1s. They're like, those don't fit. Well, our buyers will go in and turn that 2 1 into a 3 2 and that 3 1 into a 4 2 and turn it into a mother-in-law's or father-in-law's suite, add a bath, and then add value, which lowers our risk.
Yeah. Because then if they foreclose, now you take over a better property.
Yeah. So my model right now in Phoenix and in Texas is I have realtors that they have all the buyers, and so that's who I literally that one that just went vacant. One of my few rentals that I have left over. I called my agent that has all the buyers and said, hey, this one just came up. In fact, it was funny because I almost sold one to one of his buyers a couple weeks ago. And the seller got weird on me, and because he didn't, I don't know, it was a weird deal. But anyway, I knew, I don't know what it was. I knew that house was going to come up. And so I asked him like, hey, what do you think about 35th Avenue and Bethany Home area? Oh, we love that area. Most people don't, but they do. And so, and it has a carport and they do construction. And so they'll take that 3-2 that I have, turn it into a 4-2, and I'll sell that for $350,000. interesting part is go back to the one of the things I was talking about, the Burr model. I did a portfolio with a bunch of DSCR loans. I packaged a bunch of my assets up, and so now I have that. And I mean that house will probably cash flow me. Gosh, I bet I make $1,300 a month net cash on that cash flow.
Just off that one house,
not including the amount of equity I have between what I paid and what I owe, and not including the 30 or 40,000 debt I get down on it too.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah. No, that's kind of where you want to be. And if you're like coming from, if you're good at finding deals right now in the market that we're in, wholesaling has become kind of tough because buyers, like your typical like fix and flip buyer, or even like a Burr buyer with rates so high, they're all needing to buy deals deeper.
Yep.
So we were already finding deep deals, so that spread kind of went away. Would you recommend people maybe reverse engineering, kind of find these retail type buyers that aren't financeable, and then go find the houses that they're looking for?
100%. That's what because right now we have, so 8 months ago, we didn't have that time. Now we have time. Yeah. And so we can go find, and so here's a perfect example. I'm still like hustling right now. I enjoy it. I enjoy having that conversation with a listing agent and cause I know, I'll give you an example. I just talked to an agent, 3 days ago, which he ghosted me for some weird reason. I have no idea, but I said, hey, I like this property. Would your seller take terms? So how many wholesalers have already called this person and asked them the same exact thing? And on a property that's been on the market for 150 days. Every wholesaler in Phoenix.
Yeah, a lot of sub 2 community.
Yeah. Their agent reach out. It's great. It works. And he goes, thanks for calling. 30% down. I go, perfect. Send me the terms. What would most wholesalers in Phoenix do? Well, I can't do 30%. I mean, it's a $275,000 house. It's $82,000 down. Yeah. Who has the 82,000 to make that deal work?
Yeah, most investors.
They're like, no, it's either 60% or no money down and like 0% interest.
Yeah, or like 10%. Small. Yeah, something ridiculous.
Not substantial, not enough to pay the damn commission. And it's the weirdest thing because it works. And so I have the solution to come up with the 82,000. I have the solution. And then if the seller's willing to stay in the deal, so what I do is I teach getting cash now, like that, the 125 deal we talked about. Raise private
money.
Cash now, cash flow, cash later, right? What happens if you get the seller cash now, cash flow, cash later, and you just arbitrage it and you don't have to even get involved with anyone else? That's the niche right now. It's the best. It's the best niche right now ever. And so, and then we talked about it before we went on air here, was how to structure the note in a way to where you you basically can be tied to this house almost forever, and especially the note that the seller carries forever. For whatever term you are able to negotiate, which to me, it needs to be 10 years or more at the lowest interest rate possible, so I can sell it for more with not the highest interest rate, whatever works for the buyer that makes it affordable and fits their affordability.
And for some people, like, what is creating a note? Like, how do you do that when you say that? So create a note.
Yeah. So good question. So for example, let's go back to the one from yesterday, 125 purchase. So what he did is he found a great deal, and he found a place. He found he could sell it for close to market value, and get a down payment and 10%. So the note is really $880. That deal, if it was $200,000 sale price with $20,000 down, the note is $180. That's the mortgage. You're basically the bank. We're the Chases, and we're just a private individual that created the note, right? The mortgage. And so now what I do is I split them up into 2 different notes, because actually I bought my very first home. I got an 80. What did I get? I got a 80-15-5. Put 5% down. They carried 15 in a second lien, and then so I could get into the deal, and then the 80% first loan. Mm-hmm. But that was back in 2000 and whatever, 2 or 1 or whatever. I'm old, so that was how it went. And so now we're doing the same thing, but just with private note creation. The reason I do it, because I want to sell it, so I don't have any risk, or two, let's say I took over a payment subject to. Most of our we're talking about the sub 2 world. They're wrapping one loan. We just talked about it with a friend of ours that just did a massive one. And so they're wrapping it. But what happens if the sub 2 gets called due? Where's their exit?
Yeah, I guess then you have to find a refi, but like
there's ways out of it. You can write it in the contract, right? But the reality is the only way to not harm the seller that gave you the ability to pay on their behalf in their credit is to pay it off, right? So what I've always done is I still create first and seconds over the top of the subject to deal, just in case there's a due on sale clause and I have the ability to exit out for the least amount of risk. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, but because you can look at it two ways. One, and I'll talk about the BRRRR model. So let's just, because I talked to one of my clients the other day. He goes, well, I want to own the real estate. I'm like, okay, how much money do you have? So he came up with a number, and I'm like, okay, that's going to be 40 properties to get you to your goal of 15, 20,000 a month, right? So how much money do you have to put down to get to those 40 properties? How much debt are you going to have to borrow to get to those 40 properties to get to the same cash flow you would get on a note? And it was like $15 million on the hook.
That's a lot of debt.
Because you lived in an area where, and I'm like, would you rather owe nobody and just get a few extra notes that you have no debt on, or be on the hook for 15 million? So for me, I'm kind of, I can handle some risk, but I'm getting to the point in my career where I don't need it. I don't need to do actually anything if I don't want to, but my purpose is the home ownership. That's the end result, right? And so you and we're all going to go learn how to do this and help other family members, and we're going to make a bunch of money in the meantime,
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out like a deal we just sold in New Jersey. Actually, my partner, he like hates selling deals. He's like a Russian Jew, just like keep everything till you die, and keep refinancing. But this deal we bought for $32,000. The guy he was about to get foreclosed on, didn't pay his taxes.
You bought for $32,000. Okay.
Bought it for $32,000. It was financeable. We just listed it for $130,000. Just sold it for $120,000. So great. Like bought for $32,000, made $85,000 in a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. But how could have that possibly been structured?
I would have probably sold that.
What would have you done? Would you have sold that, or would have you maybe done your strategy and create a note with that, and then create some cash flow?
I mean, $85,000 is a nice chunk of money, number one. But number two is so here's what happens with wholesalers and realtors and fix and flippers. Every Monday, after they sell their house on Sunday, they're unemployable. They're unemployed. They got to start over again.
Got to go find that next deal.
Where if you created a note, your employee, I guess your borrower is paying you. So on that deal, I probably would sell for $130,000, $140,000, $150,000. I probably would have got about $15,000 to $20,000 down. So let's just say you did sell for $130,000, and so they owe you $110,000. They gave you $20,000 down. Now they owe $110,000. Okay. What I would have done is I would have created first for about $60,000 to $65,000, 65% of that number. And I would, and keep in mind, you're going now, your Russian partner over there understands taxes and insurance is massive in that market.
Yeah.
So your cash flow gets crushed on that deal.
Oh, it does. There's so many houses. I mean, I think that house, the taxes are $4,000.
$4,000. So, and
$100,000 house. Yeah.
So insurance. And so let's say it's $500 a month. Would that be that's $500 a month?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. On one house.
Yeah.
Now, what if that gets passed on to the borrower? So now your cash flow. So this goes back to the BRRRR model. So I was talking to, sidetracked a little bit. I just want to, because it kind of fits what you're talking about here. It's kind of a BRRRR model scenario that you're talking about there, but how I'd structure it, I'd probably structure the note for $65,000, $70,000 on the first. Okay. Sell it off. So that would give you some cash now because you paid 30. So you'd probably make 30 or 40 grand. And then the rest would be in a second lien. Yeah. And then you get the cash flow from that. But what I was talking to a couple of my, which is a great way to find deals right now, is through your turnkey rental providers. They're all over the country, Midwest, a lot of them, because the math works. But the math's not working right now because interest rates are 8%.
Yeah, we closed on a DSCR loan at I think just over 8%.
Yeah,
it's tough to make the cash flow work.
Cash flow doesn't work real well, right? But so here's a BRRRR model that I just saw. It was $100,000 fee to the turnkey buyer, okay, 50,000 in rehab. So he's all in for 150. Okay. All in for 150. The wholesaler that sold him the deal and is putting the whole turnkey thing together probably made 15 or 20 grand on the wholesale fee, which is fine. And then he'll make, after expenses, he'll make $187 a month. We figured it out. That was, and that's fair because he'll refinance. He'll have about 10 grand left in it. He'll still make 20% on his money. It's a good deal, right? Or go sell that 150 house for 220, get 20,000 down at 200,000 at 10% interest. The math went from 187 to 700 a month.
Wow.
That's a big difference. So do you care if you own? No. Because guess what? And why not just wrap the DSCR loan, which is what they were going to do. And so there's risk there, but for an extra $500 a month, like how many of those do you need? And that's what I teach people. It's like, how do I get to 10,000 a month in this type of vehicle as quick as possible?
Yeah. Rentals get tough too. Just like in New Jersey, we have, like I said, 9 or 10, just me, but my partner's got a lot more. But every quarter that property tax bill comes, like that needs to be paid. Like,
and guess who gets the mail? You.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I have a bunch of rentals that are like contract for deed deal. I have to have a full-time not a full-time, I have a part-time just doing all the mail.
Yeah, and if you
it's pain in the butt,
you forget or slip or something, next thing you know, like who really owns that house if you stop paying the property tax?
Yeah. So God, I was going to say something that was about that. Oh, so in the rental world, right? You have taxes, insurance, maintenance, vacancy, management. Anything else?
HOAs
throw in the sixth
whatever.
One that we don't, the unknown. And when you're a lien lord, you have none of that. You get principal and interest paid to you at a high amortization rate.
Would you say being a lien lord is the most passive way to do real estate?
So I
because everyone wants passive, like they read Rich Dad Poor Dad. They're like, I'm going to buy rentals, I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to hang out on a beach and just collect mailbox money. But I think anyone that actually goes and buys rentals realizes like that's not how rentals really play out. They're a lot of work. But
I've made all my CPA calls me you're living on the spread. So I buy great properties, I hold them, and whenever I need a bunch of money and any money, I just sell one or refinance. That's the cash flow is okay, unless you have a couple hundred apartment buildings, which is a pain in the butt because you still have all those same things that I talked about. You still have problems and stuff, and life is all about problems and solving them. Whatever, it's fine. But I know for a fact if I have 100 loans, I can go travel anywhere in the world and be on vacation for weeks and months at a time and not even think about it because I'm just watching literally, I get. Part of my morning routine is I look at my email and see how many deposits I got that day from my loan. So that's it. Like, yeah, it's pretty cool. And back to your answer about passive, and it's the very beginning of our conversation. What do your lenders do on a daily basis? Nothing. They collect the payment from you because you're a good operator. Well, guess who we're selling to? An owner occupant that's probably more of an operator than you because they don't want to lose their home and lose their family's space.
Yeah.
They probably have I think we have less risk. Now, I have one default right now of my entire portfolio on note creation, meaning I found the buyer, did the whole thing. I have one default in 5 years.
Yeah. And if that happens, I guess at that point they stop.
What's risk? Yeah.
They stop paying. First lien position probably goes and forecloses on it. And then
but guess who knows? I do because I'm going to not get my payment.
Yeah.
And so then we basically, as a direct to seller professionals, we just have another opportunity to go buy our own house back and do it again. Yeah. And I do it. I've done it. I've actually, out of all these deals I've done in the last 5 years, because I switched it. I used to have just one loan and no exit. And so now, and I was doing 5-year loans. And then my borrowers were like, well, what do I do in 5 years? You know, they're in foreign nationals, they're from Mexico, whatever. Where are they going to get a loan from in 5 years? That's why the whole lease option thing doesn't work out because there is no option for them, for most of these people. So I'm like, let's just switch it to 30 years and see what happens. And then it was just no brainer. It's a no brainer. And so what I've done is it's not hard to have a conversation with a seller or a borrower it's either, and here's the way I look at it. It's a long-term problem or a short-term problem. If it's a long-term problem, which would be an example, I'll tell you of a deal that sister, and then we just add more people to the loan so they can qualify. So sister, brother, sister-in-law bought a property for me in the Maryville area. Okay. Brother and sister-in-law go to prison forever. I don't know what they did, but they're not coming out for a long period of time. The sister, she couldn't afford the payments because they were splitting it up 3 ways. So she was putting her head in the sand, and I think her name was Maria. I said, hey, well, what can you afford? You gave me $28,000 down. Let's work something out here. Give me the house back. Let's go find you another place to live that you can't afford and some cash and put you back on your feet again. And she's like, really? You can do that? I'm like, yeah, I'm the lender. I can do whatever I want to help you. And then what did I do? I got more money down and sold it for more money.
I mean,
got
lenders just want to keep getting paid, right?
It was a win-win for her. I mean, most people try to foreclose and just take it. I knew the market was in our favor and we were able to help her out. So yeah, so that's kind of so risk factor for me is it's all in the underwriting of our buyer, our borrower. That's the risk factor, you know?
And do those people, like I've heard there's services that do proper underwriting, make sure you're not doing like predatory lending and getting caught up in all of that. Like, how do you go through that underwriting process?
The cool thing is there's a who for everything in our business, from all the way from finding it to selling it to underwriting it. So everybody has it's called a residential mortgage loan originator, an RMLO. They go through the package. Our package is like 72 pages. So when someone comes back to us and says, oh, well, you took advantage of us, we couldn't afford it. We're like, oh no, it's like right here. You had the documents, you made the money. It rarely happens, but that's why you do it. You're Dodd-Frank compliant, which I've never read the, 400 or 500 pages of whatever Dodd-Frank says, but it's just finding the ability, proving the ability that the borrower can pay. It's ability to pay. That's all.
Yeah. Because I've heard some stories of just people saying like, well, you get caught up in like predatory lending and get in a lot of trouble for that. But
yeah, someone told me the other day, I was on our mastermind call in our group and they're like, oh, well, there was something that says that you can't sell a property for more than market value. And well, what is owner finance value? And I always ask people are like, oh, I can't believe you can sell a house at 10.5% interest. And you know, that's crazy. I'm like, okay, well, how much what's the interest rate on rent?
Yeah.
There is none because they're renters. They're not owners. They have no benefit and they can be moved out within whatever their lease agreement is. That's their interest rate, which is their time in this house. And so when we do a 30-year loan for our borrowers, you know?
Yeah. Why do you think more people aren't getting into this? Like you hear a lot of people pitching creative finance, maybe buying seller finance deals, but it seems like they're not creating that second note and just getting out of the deal. Why do you think more people aren't doing that?
They don't know.
Yeah.
No one, I mean, you don't like, you and I hang around probably some of the smartest people and real estate investors, lenders, coaches, people that teach, that are some of the best educators in the world live in our city, you know, and they're amazing people and their purpose is great. They don't know. They ask me, hey, what'd you do here? I mean, I get them all day long. It's pretty cool. And so, I think that once people understand it and structure it right, then it limits a lot of risk for sure. Yeah.
And would you say, like, if you want to get into this, what's like the most critical part that someone might be missing? If let's say they know how to find deals, they know how to go on Facebook and find those buyers, what's kind of like the most important glue there to make these deals happen?
Finding a good RMLO, a good underwriter, someone that's going to qualify that borrower. But here's the cool thing. Most realtors, I use realtors to sell my houses. Mm-hmm. I pay them a commission, and it depends. Sometimes I pay them a percentage of the down payment. Sometimes as a commission, sometimes I pay them the full 3%. It just depends. It's got to make sense, right? The finances side of it. And then most of the agents, that's their job. They already know that they have to get a 1003, which is their financials. They already know all this stuff, and then it just gets sent over to an RMLO that we use. And a lot of people use transaction coordination to help with that. A lot of our transaction coordinators that we work with are they're very versed on what we do, so they understand what to look for. And so, because that's what I teach. It's like, go find a great deal, go find a buyer. Learn how to analyze it, you know?
Yeah.
And if you need to learn how to get it funded, so you got to find it, you got to analyze it, you got to get it funded, right? But nowadays we can get the seller to fund the thing, you know, which is cool. But if you can't get the seller to fund it, There's hard money lenders out there that'll do this all day long. And then from there, go find the buyer. And then once you find the buyer, get out of the way and then let everyone, your team, take care of it.
Yeah.
And then go find another deal.
And just, just rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
How many of these notes do you personally own?
So I hover around 100 right now. Yeah.
100.
But keep in mind, the last 6 to 8 months, it wasn't as prevalent. It was a little bit different. It got very competitive. I was starting to go outside of my current market into more rural communities, to find deals. And I made a couple. I only made like one bad decision where I just didn't buy right. But now we have more time. So now I can come back and get more and do what I'm really good at, which is the creative side and negotiating. The one thing I love the most is giving a seller some real cash and giving them the income, because most people don't know what to do with the money. They're sitting on idle cash and all this equity they have. And so that's kind of where the market is now. And the opportunities are endless. I mean, you can do it all over the country, even in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Over there, it's just, I don't know, just between attorneys that the states
it's for lenders and landlords. So you can do them in other markets, I guess.
Yeah. That's what intrigues me about out here, is picking up properties that way. So if someone's like brand new, they want to learn more about this, you have like a whole course or community.
So we have the Creative Dealmaker Academy. I've never really been a coach. I've never been a great educator. But over the last year and a half, I've gotten really good at it, and I enjoy it. I enjoy the community. And so we have Creative Dealmaker. So on Facebook, you can go to Creative Dealmaker. You can join our private Facebook group. That private Facebook group gets you alerts to our weekly calls. We do a weekly call every week at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And we talk about this. And then people bring deals and we just brainstorm, right? And then from there, that's kind of low level. And then we also have an academy, the Creative Dealmaker Academy. And that's basically a little bit higher level. It's pretty cheap. It's like $2,000 to join, and we go into deeper stuff like our note creation and it's a mastermind. Like, it's becoming a really good mastermind because the people in our group, beginner or not, because I have people that are beginners, they're like, this is too much for me, and I'm like, well, really, what is your goal? And then I just had a client, he wanted to cancel. He's like, oh my gosh, this is too much. And I'm like, well, let's just figure out what your goals and objectives are. And then he's like, oh no, this is not, I get it now, Eric. And so he's back on, and he's like, I think he's the guy that was doing that first deal, was a beginner. So it's pretty cool. So you have our Creative Dealmaker Facebook group, and then obviously you've been following me on Instagram, which is Eric J Sage. So that's another way. I do little snippets of this conversation because I love it.
Yeah. I think it's good for people to be able to be in a community where when they actually do find a deal, and then all of a sudden, like you, when you first knocked that door, you found a good opportunity, but you need a professional that's kind of been through the
mentor.
ringer.
My mentor helped me get through this and made me a very, very wealthy person from that one deal over time. Obviously, I've been doing this a long time now.
Yeah, no, and I've seen other coaches that teach around town go to you, and I think they've learned a lot of their knowledge from you originally.
Yeah,
from what I've seen.
Yeah. That's what I tell people. I'm like, think about this, like, big picture. It's like you have the opportunity to find great deals, and then you're the person in your community, if it's Phoenix or wherever, that you're able to provide home ownership for people that deserve it, right? And so that's your thing. So all I ask people is, add this to your toolbox and give it a run, because, well, once you do, you probably won't do anything else.
Still got to find a good deal though, right?
Yeah.
Because some people look for alternative solutions, because it's hard to find good deals.
Yep.
People find like shit deals, and they're like, well, if I underwrite it this way, maybe we could sell it to some buyer at an inflated price. But at the end of the day, still need to find a good deal. But it's just I guess a different way to look at the exit strategy almost, essentially, right?
Well, a good deal, if the seller's willing to carry and they're willing, so I have a perfect deal right now. I'm paying market value for a property, but all they wanted was $1,000 a month, and they're going to give me 30 years. Okay. Well, I can go sell that for $2,200 a month. So that's a good deal. And because I have the debt I have it pushed out for, and this particular seller wanted to give their kids' income, not chunks of cash. And so when you're negotiating, this is stuff we talk about, but when you're negotiating deal flow from a seller, if they're willing to give you terms and you're willing to give them a little bit of cash, you're just going to arbitrage the deal.
Yeah. So you're paying them $1,000 a month for 30 years.
Yep.
Zero interest on
that
it,
one. No, I think the seller wanted like 4%.
4%.
But
yeah.
but I'm charging 10.
Right.
And selling it for a little bit more.
So you're making like essentially that 6% difference, and then you're out of the deal.
I'm just the bank, and I'm just wrapping it. So seller selling to me, my contracts allow me to. There's no due on sale clause, and I can go resell it and wrap it. So a lot of that's just the structure of the paperwork, which I've found that over the last year and a half of me teaching this stuff, that seems to be one of the things. It's like people get afraid. They're like, what paperwork do I use? How do I make it work? And so I'm actually creating the ultimate note, I would say, when you buy a property, and obviously when you sell.
Yeah, because we were talking to a guy that does creative finance yesterday too at the Open, and after talking to a lot of different people in creative finance, what I think makes sense for me, because I'm terrible at paperwork, like I should not be reading through 70 pages of documents, or like I'm probably going to go to jail. But you need someone to protect you. And I've learned from other people, it seems like if you can find a transaction coordinator, escrow, kind of that knows all the paperwork, understands creative, understands how to structure these things, really, like you could just go to them and be like, hey, look, I have a seller that here's what they want. They want 30, we agreed to 30 years at this price, this interest, this term length. And then I have a buyer who agreed to this. And then you kind of just give all that information. You
match up the terms and they doc prep it. So the other thing that I'm working on, which is a need for our community, was you have to have an RMLO, which is to underwrite the borrower. The other thing, by the way, everything we do is serviced like a bank. All the taxes, all insurance, everything's, when the buyer sends in, or the borrower sends in their money, they take everything and then send us a check, send us a wired or automatic deposit. So what I found recently is one of my servicers, they will doc prep. So they're going to create this perfect doc prep autofill for us. They will do the RMLO work. They'll do the servicing. The only thing they won't do is title. Okay. So I have literally a one-stop shop except title, and title is title, and they're nationwide. So that's pretty cool. So I'm working with them. It's been a busy week, but I'm sitting down with them to create the perfect process for our people in our community.
Yeah, I love that. I think if you can make the paperwork easy for a lot of these things, a lot of those fears get eliminated. And the idea it's not a super complicated idea. I think when you just start thinking,
it's not an idea. Because I'm doing it.
Right. You're doing it. Right. But I guess it's like the idea of wholesaling, right?
Yeah.
That's just like for people's brains. They're like, okay, buy low, sell high. I've done that with shoes, garage sales my whole life.
Yeah.
This is a little bit more in-depth thinking, but it's just kind of like what you see banks do all the time. It's not.
It's a cash flow play, and to me, like I said, you wholesale a house, you're unemployed. You flip a house, you're unemployed. You're a realtor. So like realtors control our market no matter still in my world. And so there's not, every realtor should understand this because it makes sense. And then think about if you're a realtor and you come in as a principal and you get paid on every house that you sold. Can you imagine how much, that's just, and you provide a ton of value. Yeah. That's the thing. So, that's kind of what we do.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming on today. I learned a lot, and thanks for providing a bunch of knowledge.
Yeah, man. Anytime. Thanks for having me.